you to everyone who did the readout. We are approaching the end, but of course we are not going to end on a negative note. I now am going to introduce Fabian Rogers from the Atlantic Towers, who will give us a call to action and give us a little bit of hope as we go forward for the rest of the day. Please join me in introducing Fabian.
So, hi, everybody. Again, name is Fabian Rogers, tenant from Atlantic Plaza Towers. I wouldn't say rinky-dink, but a place that is a place of culture, was made in late 60s and is preserved culture for a while. And I come from people who just simply like to live, pay for their livelihood just like everybody else. Yes, there's affordable housing in it, but what we understand now is that things like affordable housing and things that are given to people or whatever the case may be, it's almost like it's stigmatized. And so I come here as a community advocate overall. I've been a part of a fight for facial recognition, not being installed in our housing, but really the bigger conversation is thinking about facial recognition housing in general. But I don't want to focus on that in this. I want to focus on the fact of thinking about advocacy, because the core of everything that we've been talking about today, the root of it starts at the grassroots level. There has to be a movement for everything that goes on. I know everybody likes to point the finger at the government, because the government is the one that makes the laws. The government is the one that makes actions happen. The government is the one that handles the big cases for things to be changed. But at the end of the day, ultimately, where issues start is from the people that are affected by them. Those are the people that care about the issues more often than not. Those people are the people that understand the issue the most because they live that experience. And I'm an example of that, where I lived the experience of dealing with something I didn't understand a year ago, and I had to inform myself to figure it out. And so I come here today as a walking testament for any sort of movement that's relevant to you, because I know housing might not be relevant to some people. Some people are living nice, cool. But maybe education might be a thing that you might have an issue with. Child welfare might be something you have an issue with. The idea of employment, discrimination within that is an issue that you have an issue with. But at the root of everything that we talked about, amongst all the breakout groups, is that the core of where things start is the grassroots level. The people like you and I that are in this room right now. Those are the people that usually enact the change, because they're the people that can speak from experience, that help people understand how to properly go about the proper legislation or the proper movement to make sure things are done in order to protect the people that are affected on an everyday basis. So I know it's a lot to ask for, and trust me, I'm not a fan of the fact that I have to go to City Hall hearings, talk to elected officials that never heard of me a day in their life, but the simple fact that if I don't go and talk to them, they'll either assume that they have a solution to the case, but they don't talk to the people that are affected. And so this call to action that I'm doing is just to help you understand that what you're doing right here, sitting in these seats, is so, so, so important, because it's usually the start of the bigger movements that come, that enact change, that allow for us to live more convenient and comfortable lifestyles. You got to understand, the civil rights movement started from grassroots movements, and people don't think about civil rights as grassroots. We just think about it as civil rights. Rosa Parks said no. But it starts from the fact that she was one of many of people who were affected by very discriminative policies that affected her lifestyle. And she was just one person that was a representation of an entire movement, essentially, or one of many that were a part of representations of big movements. But if we start to think about these movements as grassroots and think about where we fit in that puzzle of how to fix the problems that come to our face and how we have to deal with them, and figure out how we fit ourselves in the puzzle of how do I talk to the next person? How do I enact change? How do I enact the policies that need to be done? Because it can be possible. I've had a landlord withdraw his application way before when he thought he could put in an application without having any sort of clapback or anything like that. So I come as a walking testament of what activism looks like. And I hope that for the folks that stay here for the call to action session and figure out how to take actionable steps towards change for whatever issue you're facing, that you understand that what you're doing right here is one of the most important things to do. So I say on behalf of everybody, that's the staff and the folks that have been involved in a lot of the advocacy here and the volunteerism here, that we thank you for your activism, and it's recognized without a doubt. So please don't take the grassroots movements for granted. Your movements are not in vain, and it takes a long time, but because of your efforts, we can see better changes for tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. Okay, I'm going to close us out, but I just want to note that Fabian is a part of a group of tenants that literally did just take this invisible system that they didn't know anything about. They were thrown this unexpectedly. They were not given adequate warning about the system. They weren't understanding what was behind the system, and they were able to fight against it. Atlantic Towers is like one of our success cases that we constantly talk about, and it is an example of community members literally rallying up together to fight against something that seemed initially bigger than them, but actually is not. So let's give Fabian another round of applause for his advocacy. And we are severely behind time, so I won't keep us too long. But I do want to say that Fabian's speech and everything that we've heard today, everything we've seen today, really reinforces one thing. There's power in our community. There's power in people like you, people like me, getting up on a Saturday, coming all the way to Harlem, taking long treks and being here all day, sharing our stories, sharing our experiences, sitting in breakout groups, and talking about this technology, talking about these systems that affect us. It's no secret that we live in a racially discriminatory world. We live in a biased society. Before technology, as Dr. Ruha pointed out today, we already had systems in place that target Black and brown communities. We already had systems that mass surveyed us, that watched us, that removed our children from our homes, that denied us of education, that policed our bodies, that told us that we weren't going to be good enough, that we were risky, that we were likely to commit crimes. We've already seen those systems, and now with technology, we've seen those exact same systems replicated, but at alarming rates. And worse, it's done in secret. We don't always have access to understanding these algorithms, and they're put into place by people who aren't necessarily focused on our views. There's more efforts to criminalize than to have public safety measures. There's more efforts to criminalize poverty, Blackness, and people of color than to help the public health situation that we need. And I don't mean to be overwhelming. I know that you guys spent the last few hours walking through different sessions, hearing how these discriminatory policing practices, discriminatory technologies have affected literally every single area of our lives, and it can be overwhelming. But as Fabian said, and as we've heard from Dr. Ruha and Rashida Richardson today, there's hope. There's definitely hope. And together, if we push, we can fight against these institutions. This is not something that's bigger than us. This is not something that's impossible to attack. We are seeing communities already on every level gather together. We've seen folks oppose this with the POST Act, which we have upstairs, ready for you to call your city councilor about. We've seen it through legislation. We've seen it through policy notes. We've seen it through community organizing. But again, it all starts at the grassroots level. Organizers, community members just like me and you have been the root of every major movement in this country. They have been the start of it. And technology is not going to stop. This is a train that's going exceedingly fast. And so I implore you to join us upstairs on the 9th floor to engage in different action items. We have letters that you can write to Mayor de Blasio. We have them already written. We have pen and paper for you to write your own. We have action cards. We have action items. We have a photo booth. We want to spread the word that community members are engaged, that they came out today, that they showed up. to protect our own interest and make sure the world knows it. The New York City Task Force is the first of its kind in the country, and we saw that it did not seek out community members. We saw that it did not protect our interest, but we do know one thing, that the world is watching. And I've heard people ask about the New York City Automated Decision System Task Force from all over the country. So we know people are watching. People are looking to see what's going to happen in New York City. How are people going to respond? Is the mayor going to allow other algorithmic bias? Are automated decision systems going to run rampant in New York and continue to discriminate? Because you know what happens then? It gets replicated all over the country. And technology is one of those things that if you don't catch it fast, it gets out of hand. So I implore you to act. I appreciate you coming out today. Aubrey, if you can put up the slide to contact us. I'll just note, I know some people are leaving, that this community forum is not supposed to be the final step. We implore you to continue things like this. We've already had multiple people reach out and say, how can we replicate this forum in our neighborhoods? I encourage you to do so. You can contact us. There's going to be an email link put up shortly. But the goal is to replicate this. The goal is to do this again in the Bronx, again in Harlem, again in Manhattan, again in Brooklyn, all over. Because there are community members who you know should be in this room but aren't right now, and they need to know this and they need to be aware of it. So thank you all so much for attending the first Automated Bias Community Forum. And before we leave, I just want to say, honestly, this has been a huge endeavor. We've been so grateful for all the support that we've gotten. This event has been months in the making, and I just want to quickly run through our partners and thank AI Now Institute, the ACLU, the Atlantic Towers tenants, Beta NYC, Brennan Center for Justice, Columbia University, Communities United for Policing Reform, Data and Society Research Institute, the Digital Equity Lab, Human Rights Watch, IEE USA AI Policy Committee, Immigrant Defense Project, Integrate NYC, Internet Society New York Chapter, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, Legal Aid Society, Legal Services NYC, National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the National Coalition for Child Protection Reform Neighborhood, Defenders of Harlem, New York City Liberties Union, NYSPI at Columbia University, Uten and Golden, Princeton University, Rockaway Youth Task Force, Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, and the Brotherhood Sisterhood Soul. The fact that we have that many people coordinating to make this event happen speaks volumes. Again, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the day, and I'll see you on the 9th floor in room 9T so you can get started on your action items. Thank you.